Kevin Schormann, and he's an engineer. And he works in the trenches all day at the studio to make everybody sound great, make these projects get done on time, which is a big part of it. You know, it'd be one thing if you're working in a vacuum and you could spend an infinite amount of time on a new project, but everything is under tight deadlines. So I wanted to talk to Kevin about some of the stuff that you get files in that are recorded from the outside. First thing you do is probably go, ugh, right? No, I mean, what do you do when you first get the audio files? You make an immediate judgment as to whether you'll be able to work with those files, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
When's a file so bad? What makes the difference between a file you can use and one that's just got to re-record it or it's not going to be usable?
You want to make an engineer happy. We love nice, clean audio. I've heard everything from crickets to airplanes to motorcycles, and I'm like, no, that's not a sound design thing. That's something, you know. So that's, you know, key, nice, clean. And the first thing I do is I'll put, I don't know if you know what a limiter is, most of you obviously know what a limiter is. I put a limiter on there and I set the ceiling to about like, you know, -4, and then I raise the threshold up, and that's when you're going to start hearing all the artifacts and all the noise come into play. So
I'll demystify, because I know not everybody knows what a limiter does, but basically what a limiter does is in the strictest term, it limits how loud something can get, but we also use it to bring up overall levels to a certain amount. So the limiter immediately will expose problems with the noise floor, because if you bring it up to a certain
up
degree,
that noise floor,
everything gets louder, all the bad stuff. And you can't get away with cheating and recording your levels real low, thinking that if I record it low, the noise won't be a problem, because he's going to have to boost it way up. So that's why it's so important.
yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of acoustics, how live is too live? Does it totally depend on the production? Obviously, I mean, there's something to do with it, but when do you realize it's just a little too reverberant, or conversely, too dead? Is that ever a problem?
Sometimes a little bit of reverb is okay. I mean, ideally you want a room with no reflective walls. You know, you want absorption. You want to absorb it. A little bit is probably okay. You know, probably, you know, keep like a natural tone to it. But for the most part, I mean, you want a nice dead room, I think, essentially. I think ideally.
Yeah, I mean, as a voice actor, how do you know what's dead enough? You know, like if you're a voice actor, how do you determine that?
Probably too dead. It'll probably start to sound like maybe speaking into like a pillow, you know, and it probably takes away from the natural, you know, tones of the voice. You know, probably absorb too much, you know.
The problem is like most people are in really small spaces. So like when you find that like anytime there's any hard surface, like a glass or a screen or a wall that's within, you know, 2 feet of the mic, you're going to hear that reflection, right?
Yeah.
You pretty much have to damp it all, right?
Yeah.
Damp the whole thing.
I would say so. Yeah.
In a closet, in a small space.
Well, they have those cool things now that sit on the mic and they're shaped like a half circle.
Yeah,
reflection
filters.
And it kind of keeps you in, you know, keeps the voice.
Do you think those really help?
I've used them. I like them.
Yeah?
Yeah. So.
Do you think they would work if you just had an empty room, you just pull one of those up? Would that even be enough?
No.
Yeah.
No, I've tried that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a combination of that stuff, right?
If you're really in a budget, you can use moving blankets too.
Yeah.
That would work. You know, that would, you know, help with the reflective surfaces.
Moving blankets work really well. Surprisingly well, actually.
And they have the grommets too. You can actually have them with the grommets, so you can just hang them up.
Yeah, get the ones with the metal grommets and you just hang them up, and then you don't want them to be on the wall all the time, take them down.
Yeah, because I was still living at my walk-in closet. So I needed to hang my clothes, so when somebody would come in, take the clothes off, okay, hang the, you know, moving blankets back up, you know.
Well, you were recording outside client, like
that
talent,
that
right?
was a home studio. I got outside clients.
So you weren't going to leave the clothes. See, like normally I just say leave the clothes in there.
No, they had to go.
But you can't do that.
No,
not when you're bringing in talent.
I work in my clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Microphones. We choose the mics because we know that they work well. But how much weight do you put on the mic? How do you ever ask the talent what equipment they're using? First of all, do you
yeah.
ever care? Do you ever ask?
Yeah, I mean, mic's important. Mic pre's are important. You know, that right there is kind of going to be a big factor in the noise floor.
Yeah.
Especially the mic pre. You know, you can get really affordable mics now. I think you touched on that. You don't have to spend $2,000 on a Neumann
No,
microphone.
you can get $200 mics that sound surprisingly good.
Yeah, definitely.
But
you know, I think a lot of it's with the mic pre.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think there's a lot of noise in the circuitry that can add to your audio that you don't want.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So-
I mean, I was saying earlier that even these less expensive USB interfaces they're getting really good.
Mhm.
The chip in there, the converters, everything is getting pretty good now. Some of my clients will say, I want to buy XYZ because if a potential buyer or client wants to know what I'm using, I don't want them to know that I'm using junky gear. I don't want them to prejudge me or think that I'm giving lousy quality. Do you ever, as an engineer, care enough to ask, what equipment are you using?
I do ask, but then we ask for an audio sample, and if the sample sounds good,
If it sounds good, it is good.
it's good.
Right.
You heard
You
it.
know, so
Right here. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
a crappy drum, if you tune it the right way, it sounds
Exactly.
W.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's tuning, it's technique, it's placement, it's acoustics, it's
Mhm.
noise floor, it's all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So, how about just one or two like just pet peeves? Like, I wish people would stop doing this. We talked about it, but like if someone comes into the studio, like an etiquette.
I had
perspective.
this guy come in, and we're trying to get this. It was just a short 30-second spot, and he kept going, "In a world," and he kept doing that. Through every take, he'd laugh and say, "In a world," and okay.
Is that his
that's,
like lead-in line or his warm-up?
It's just kind of like, okay, now that I'm here, I'm in the studio. I want to say it's like the typical like thing you hear in a movie, "In a world," you know. And he kept doing that, and I'm like, all right, that's enough. You know? that's
You
good.
actually had to tell him.
We got you 3 times on that take, so we're not even going to use that take. That's just a goof, you know. So it's kind of like when you're in the studio and the drummer's doing the kick, and you're getting a sound check, and somebody starts saying the Iron Man, Black Sabbath. 'Cause he's going,
Yeah.
it's like in the studio, it's like you don't do that. You know?
These are like the cliches of studios, and so when you start doing them, it calls attention to the fact that you're kind of new to the studio.
Mhm.
I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah,
right?
and being prepared, you know, coming in knowing the script, you know, that's key. You know,
Preparation.
Doing your homework, preparation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your job is you're a very important cog, but you're a cog in a machine, and when your unpreparedness slows things down, that does not build repeat client. You will not probably get called back again, no matter how good, unless you're a celebrity maybe. But you know, there's celebrities get away with murder, but yeah. Careful on it.
In what you do in this field, are you also a partial producer? Because you're so direct with the voice that's going on, you're the one.
It depends.
Do you know where I'm trying to go?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
actually that was the first question on my list is how is an engineer, producer, and technician jobs, how are they all different? So you wear both hats sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on both sides where I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna hit record and keep my mouth quiet and let let the client,
Grit your teeth.
let them produce. Unless I really hear something that's like, then I'll just be like, you mind if I chime in for a second? And then, you know, if they're cool, I'll be like, I think we should just retake that line again.
That's the engineer etiquette part. Learning as an engineer,
Yeah.
when it's safe to speak up.
You don't want to overstep that boundary when they have a producer. They're there for that reason. Let them do their job. And then I've been on the other side where I've actually had to, produce and direct and really just, have my ears in tune to
Performance.
what was going on. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's a whole nother side, the technical. That's probably my least favorite, because that's where everything is going great, mic set up, talent's in the booth, client's here, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong.
6150 error,
And
whatever the hell it is.
and you just have to stay calm and figure it out, and sometimes maybe there's another engineer around and your head is just kind of spinning, and maybe it's a good day and you figure it out. Maybe it's something simple like the 48 phantom power button wasn't engaged, or you know, whatever. But sometimes there's another engineer around. You can just kind of grab him and be like, you know, hey, man, just like pop in and take a listen to this, and he'll just like come right in and be like, oh, it's this, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're in the moment and everything is set up and you're trying to get everything going, you just need to try to like slow down and wrap your head around it. So the technical part,
The sweat starts. That's when the
Yeah.
sweat beads start to form in their head.
mhm.
Yeah, and if you get to work in a really high-end commercial studio of the old days, maybe not so much anymore, but there was a full-time tech that was just there all day. That's all they did. They'd get a call from Studio B, and they'd have to run into B, and and the
Yeah.
engineers got to be really laid back, because like, I'll get the engineer.
Yeah, call the tech.
I need the tech to fix
Yeah.
it.
But I was always told when you go into the studio, don't touch the equipment and don't hang the headphones on the microphone stand.
Yes, that's good. No, actually, you're right.
Studio ready.
Yeah, just walk in, just be chill, and just we'll have everything set up for you.
You can
So-
touch your copy, you can
That's
touch
it.
the copy
The music
stand,
That's it.
and
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. I mean, we're always cool about if you have any questions. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. Any
But also
editing
don't-
questions, or
Don't
like-
go in there and go, well, the copy stand's real low, that sucks for me, but oh well, I have to suck it up. No.
Let
if
us
the
know.
copy's too low,
Yeah.
tell them to move it or move it.
Yeah.
And let them move the mic. Like when I set up copy for people, I don't do it often, but when I set up a studio, I always set up the copy first and then put the mic in the right place, because if you have to do this to read the copy, or you're looking through the shadow of
Ducking
a
under.
microphone,
I see them like ducking under the pop screen, and something's not right.
Yeah,
But they don't
something's
say
not right.
anything, so I
yeah,
go in
they
there.
struggle through it. So you should definitely speak up when the copy's not in the right place, for sure, absolutely.
What would be the steps then to take it to a polished state? Like somebody sent you raw audio to process it, what, are there?
How much time do you have?
Oh, yeah. The quick answer.
So what, is there a rule of thumb? It
Yeah.
always has to be normalized, always,
There is. We like to create another track. We have a raw and we have a cooked track. So when we're actually recording, we're recording the talent. It's recording a raw track and a cooked track at the same time.
what's
So
it called? What's it
it's
called?
processed.
That's the,
It's just
the wet track.
And it's already being processed while they're recording?
Yeah, yeah.
That's something that's special about Pro
Because
Tools.
the Pro Tools,
You can create another track and you can route it to the next track underneath, and then you can have your compression, high pass filter. You can roll off everything below 75 hertz on a voice, right?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Sometimes higher, depends.
Yeah. A de-esser is important, and then something to raise the overall level, like a L1 limiter, or the Maxim you can even use. I think that comes standard with Pro Tools.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're going to use Pro Tools and you don't take advantage of features like that, there's no point in using it. And I teach people that use Pro Tools how to do stuff like that, how to bus out here and split out to another track, and because then you're taking advantage of what the software can really do. But when you're learning, it's another hurdle, and it gets in the way of voice acting unless you have a technical background.
Yeah.
So
Yes, it does.
The first time I was ever in a stand-up studio, I knew not to touch the mic, so I didn't. But how could I mess up with a stand? Well, that was easy enough. I just raised the stand to my level
oh, I know it happened.
and went straight up into the mic. So I always add that when I mention it.
Good point. Good point. Maybe not always raising the mic copy stand is a good idea.
Mhm.
I've actually seen the head. Did it just slide up, or did the head pop off?
Just came right out.
The head pops off and bang right into the microphone.
Oh,
Okay,
boy.
there you go.
Yeah.
Strike that. Don't touch the copy. Don't touch the copy stand either. Just say, hey, can you raise the strip?
In an actual production, if you know it's going to be mixed with music or ambient sound or something, does it make any sense to reduce, to eliminate the breaths?
I just take out the obnoxious ones.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
huge gulp or
The big,
Gaspers.
But I actually like to leave breaths in, and it keeps it natural. And especially even like audiobooks, especially, they even say, like Audible will say, you have to keep breaths in there. And they don't like gating, because gating will squash the breaths, and it'll make a breath sound kind of weird.
Yeah, it does.
So
It does mess with breath.
so editing audiobooks is tough, because you need that room tone, and sometimes
It
you'll
is,
copy
man.
breaths even, or
Books are hard.
Mhm.
They're time consuming. The processing, the editing. It's very. And people come to me and they're like, they're getting started in voiceover, and I ask them what they're working on. They're like, I'm gonna do an ACX book, and I'm like, oh man,
How many
That's like-
hours?
I'm gonna,
That's
that's
many
like,
hours.
that's literally like, I'm gonna start running and train for the marathon. You know, it's, man, that's quite.
If they're like a 12-hour book, yeah, it's tough.
Like, what is your scale? Like, I'm not putting it together right, but like,
There's no scale. I mean, for
I'm not sure the
producing.
question. Is it
Well,
like-
if it's an audiobook, let's say it's ACX, right? In ACX, you're expected to produce the whole thing. You the voice actor.
right,
Doesn't mean that you engineer the whole thing, per
Okay.
se. You can hire out, but whatever the payment you're getting per hour, per finished hour, you have to divide up among the
Whoever.
members of the team.
right,
So if it's stipend and you're getting a little bit of money, then that's going to go away very quickly. If it's obviously if it's spec, or what do they call that, royalty share, it's all out of pocket. So but it's all comes out of the budget. So if sometimes they say your books, you're going to get $400 per finished hour for this book. You go, payday. But you might spend personally 4 hours on that hour, then pay somebody else 2 hours per hour, and all of a sudden you divided that up over 6 hours. So you're really getting paid a sixth of that per hour. If that makes sense.
yeah.
So, yeah. Cool. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, guys.